So that's Sarah Hicks. I'm just kidding. That's Sarah Hicks. This is just a picture of Sarah Hicks if you watched Jared's presentation on yesterday afternoon. Sarah's going to talk to us about empathy and the empathy gap. Give it up for Ms. Sarah Hicks.
Thank you, Michael, and thank y'all for being here late in the afternoon on a Friday. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I say I'm honored, and I truly mean that, to be a product person standing on this stage at a dev track. I am truly honored. I know. So I'm going to try to do the base group proud. I'm so thankful for them bringing this great group together and for us to be able to spend 2 days talking about software that we love. So a little bit about me. I got a degree in Auburn with nothing to do with anything software, anything technology. I got my first job at a teeny tiny software development company, and I was doing business development, which meant anything other than what the engineers were doing. So that could have been account management, QA, product design. Who knew what the day would hold? But it gave me a really great drinking from the fire hose experience of what is technology? What does software development mean? What do engineers need? So from there, I moved on and I was a customer success manager, which sounds like a business job, but I was in an office with all developers. I think there were 3 of us business people and 40 developers. So I got to see every day how they worked, how they functioned, how their meetings went. I got to sit on the couch and drink a beer and watch them crush bugs in the late afternoon on a Friday. And it gave me a really great view of engineers and product and what I believed product was. And what I realized is once I got to being a product owner, that actually was not what most product owners were doing. They didn't have the experience sitting with engineers, understanding how code is written, understanding all of that. So it set me up really well to move through a few different companies as a product owner, and is why I'm here today, because I do product ownership a little bit different, and I want to help and teach and talk about how I do it, what I've seen from my experience. So now I'm a VP at a health tech startup, and I lead 5 teams, and I absolutely love it. And these, most importantly, are my 2 doodles who I love so much. So I want to see who's in the room. Engineers, product. You owe me $1, Michael. See, I have 2, 3, 3. You owe me $3. Yes. He said nobody would raise their hand for being in product. So thank you for proving him wrong. So excited to have product people, because one of the things that I truly believe is product and engineering needs to be closer together. Anybody else that I missed? QA? Designers? Kelly's talk earlier was great. Awesome. Well, we're so happy that all of y'all are here. What company sizes do we have? Small startups? Medium? Enterprise? Okay, so that didn't lower my, like, now I have to talk about everything all at the same time. So my disclaimer is this is all just my experience. None of this is medical advice. None of this is that deep. It is just my experience working with engineers and how I have seen the positives that product can make when it's done right. So we've heard so much, so much this week about the speed of software. I want to call back to Harris's talk. He talked a lot about it this morning and specifically said engineers need to be empathetic to company stakeholders. And that was interesting to me, because that's what we learn as product. And in the new speed and age of software where we have AI and product managers are now expected to be creating prototypes and building these real things, we have to stop and also say, well, I guess engineers are going to be product managers now. How does this work? We used to take a month to do a deep dive into requirements, and then a month to do design, and then a month to do refinement, and then we would move across and then start building. Now that's a week, a day, an hour, maybe not even. So that's why this is important to talk about now, because the whole world has changed. As Kelly mentioned in her presentation changed. The world is evolving so rapidly. So I want a little bit of audience participation. I know it's late on a Friday, but raise your hands if you've ever received requirements without context. Okay. What about had a stakeholder prescribe the solution? Okay. Built a feature nobody used. Okay. What about just build it? Okay, and I don't have a slide for this one, but I built this in 30 minutes in Claude. Yeah, that one hurts. That one hurts. So here's a real life, or not a real life example, but a hypothetical example that I just wanted to paint the picture. So you get a stakeholder request that says, we need better accessibility across the building. The product owner or product manager grabs it and says, guys, we got to build ramps to all the entrances. Build me some great ramps. We need a beautiful high-tech elevator. Put it together, build it. It's going to be great. This is what you end up with. You did not need a ramp inside. You did not need an elevator at all. You just needed a way to get up 2 stairs to the restrooms. But we didn't ask all the questions. We just said, oh, I know what they want. I know what they need. And we just did it. So today I want to talk about why I think this happens, and more importantly, some ways to fix it that I've seen. So what is empathy? As product owners, we are taught empathy from the very beginning. You get your product owner certification, you get your UX certification, user empathy, user empathy. All you want is user empathy. Nielsen Norman Group is one of my favorite UX groups to look at from a product perspective, and they define it as the ability to fully understand, mirror, and then share another person's expressions, needs, and motivations. So think about that for a second. It's not just, oh yeah, I get it, sure, sounds good, build an elevator, why not? It's truly putting yourself in that other person's shoes. It's really thinking about what they care about, what they know, what they don't know. What does their day look like? How do they need to use this piece of software? So, as I said, product to users, we spend time doing user sessions, we spend time building and getting feedback, doing all of these loops with our users. So, as product, we're really attuned to our users and what they need. We're also attuned to our stakeholders. And calling back to Harris's presentation again, so this is something that is really real, and it's something that is needed, and it's something that product does all the time. But I'm here to talk to you about today the gap that I believe is hurting institutions everywhere, hurting orgs. And I had a question yesterday on the first session, was so funny to me. A gentleman sitting in the back asked Jared, said, why are product and engineering just fighting all the time? It's like they just hate each other. And I'm like, well, from my experience, I've seen that, but it doesn't need to be that way. But we need, as product people, we need to have empathy for our engineers, and we need to think about what their day looks like. We need to think about all of those things. And so I know I'm speaking to a majority of engineers here. So I want to use these moments to give you tools to ask for, and as Mitchell said yesterday, to really think about what, like, I'm not a leader or I am a leader. How do I bring these things to my org? How do I bring these things to have positive change? So I have 3 things from a fix and a problem perspective, and then I have 6 different practices that we're going to talk about. So my first one is that engineers are included too late. I think from all of the hand raises, y'all have all felt this. It's a really big problem at every organization. And this to me is just fixed by including an engineer before the problem, while the solutions are being chosen. So what I did at one of the larger organizations that I was in is I realized we were spending the month to do the build, or a month to build the requirements. We were doing a month to build the design. We were doing a month to do the refinement. And then I got it in front of an engineer, and he was like, that's not going to work. That's going to be hard to build. Why did you design it like that? And I was like, oh, okay. So then we'd have to go back and start that 3-month loop all over again. So what I did is I started asking for a volunteer from my engineers and saying, hey, who's interested in this? Who's interested in this feature? And I would take them along with me from the very, very beginning. So it wasn't their favorite part of the day to go sit in a user session, but they learned something. It wasn't their favorite part of any moment to be in that design review, but they were able to positively impact what we were doing and make positive changes to say, hey, if we do this, we'll build it better that way. I had a question when I was talking about this presentation that really made me think, and I was like, how do you get engineers to do this? And my thought first was, are you interested? Do you want a minute away from your cube? Like, do you want some social interaction? No? Oh, okay. So I can't get you like I can get myself. That's not going to win. But I said, are you interested in being a scrum master and being a leader in IT? Do you want to have exposure past just our dev meetings? Because this is going to get you in front of stakeholders. This is going to help you learn that stakeholder empathy. This is going to put you in places where you wouldn't usually be, and maybe you'll actually like it. So I had really great success doing that, and my engineers gave, after being drug along, all were excited about it, and it got them more excited about the project, about building the feature, holistically all around. It made us more excited as a group and as a team to build what we were building. So my next thing is engineers often don't feel safe asking questions because of a lot of the reasons that we talked about earlier. You don't feel like you're being heard if you do ask questions. People just say it's easy. People haven't given you the context. So I want you to think that questions aren't resistance. Questions are empathy in action. Because how can you know what people are doing? How can you know what they need if you aren't willing to ask the questions? I truly believe that I'm so lucky to have so many great engineers on my team and on every team I've been on. And my goal is to fill the room with people that are smarter than me. Because I guarantee you, I don't know how to build that thing. I know how I want it to look, I know how I want the user to interact with it. But I need you to ask me questions that I didn't think about. Because I got excited about accessibility and I knew elevators fix that. So I wanted to build a beautiful purple high-tech elevator that solved no problem. So I just absolutely rely on my engineers asking questions. So my next, and so questions lead to conversations. Conversations lead to collaboration. Collaborations lead to better outcomes, and better outcomes lead to better culture. And so I think culture in an engineering world is so important because, especially in the world of AI, the world of remote work, the world where we're all so separated, if we can take a moment to bring each other together and to ask questions, to have conversations, to build this connection point, we're going to have a better culture and we're all going to be better for it. And in my opinion, happier developers build better software, right? Right? Okay, third thing is skipping discovery. So as we've talked about today, calling back to Kelly's talk, which she spent a lot of time on this, we are just jumping to prototype. We don't even know what question we're asking. We're saying, this looks pretty, let's build it. I need a dashboard, let's build it. So we have to take more time defining the problem than putting together our feature. We need to spend more time asking the right questions than we are just building that user story that we think we need. So now I'm going to move on to our practices. So giving you engineers context is important. And this is where, as I said, I know I'm speaking to engineers. Feel free to ask us when we don't have it right, when we don't have the user story. So from a product perspective, we're taught to build a user story. As a user, I want a thing so that I can accomplish the next thing, right? And we build stories, we get lazy, we say, build me a dashboard, build me a feed, build me a this, build me a that. So feel empowered when you don't have the so what to ask for the so what, because context is key and context will help you deliver the right thing. The next piece is bringing engineers closer to customers. As I mentioned earlier, I really enjoy bringing an engineer all the way through the process with me. But I know that's not realistic for a lot of companies. We have too many stories to get out. Our velocity is expectation is too high and we have someone out. So it's not always possible to take someone with you for the entirety of your feature build. So instead, one of the things you can do is bring that user session, bring that review, bring that video that shows the user in a frustrating path down the line that you've recorded with whatever user tool you have, user testing or the like. Actually show it to them. Bring that thought and that empathy of what the customers are doing to those conversations. One of the things that I would do when I worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama was we were tasked with making the website easier to use for Medicare. So grandpa, grandma, parents now, So I got a sketch of an old man and I would put him on the chair because this is back in the days of working in the office. I would put him on a chair. Nobody was allowed to sit there. And I said, "What would Mr. Bob think about that?" And it really challenged the idea of what are we thinking about? Like, what are we thinking about him, or are we thinking about, ooh, this is pretty. This is purple. This is my favorite color. What are we thinking about? And if we're not thinking about Bob, we're not going to be successful with what our leadership wants. So I challenge y'all to ask for that if you don't have it from a product perspective. I challenge you to bring it and give that lens into the world that product lives in. So the next piece is letting engineers shape solutions. So I think this is important because in product and in being a stakeholder, you get excited about the ownership of I built this. And we need to take a step back. As I said earlier, I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to surround myself with people that have great ideas and that are smarter than me, that can put together better solutions. And so if we can take ourselves out of the, oh, this was my idea, oh, I own this, I have to have every single piece of this and every single decision, we're going to be more successful together. The next piece is building feedback into every loop. So I have a new developer who is amazing, and he's on my team and he's super young. And I mentioned to him, I was like, hey, do you want to just send me feedback like when you start building something? Because we're in a startup, we don't have a designer. So a lot of times we're sending things with ideas. And he's a great front end designer, so he doesn't mind that. So we've started iterating, and we had gotten to the place where we were getting things to test. He was pushing them to test, and I was like, oh, wait, that's not exactly what I wanted. Oh, wait, I would have moved this over just a little bit. So I was like, why don't we iterate faster? Why don't you just send me a screenshot, send me a video, send me a Teams meeting. Let's just jump on and talk about it. So this started out as a slide about client to UX, putting in that feedback, getting it everywhere. But when I was thinking about it earlier, I was like, this happens even just more so with product and engineering or QA and engineering. If you have a dedicated QA person that you're working with, this can be in any facet, but don't feel afraid to ask for that feedback quickly, because then we're going to get to the end much quicker, much cheaper, and we're going to all be happier. So um, this is one of the things that my developers call me and talk to me about. So they're like, Sarah, man, you protected my time. How do I get my product people to do this? How do I make them understand how I work as a developer? And this is where I work differently, because I sat in that office. I saw how the developers worked. I knew they couldn't be pulled in 17 directions all day. As product people, that's just part of our life. We're usually in a lot of meetings. We're chasing things from here to there to everywhere. We're doing all of these little things in disparate ways. As an engineer who's coding and doing complex tasks, you need that protected time. So my three things here that I like are just having dedicated focus time, and that is done by consolidating meetings. I make sure all of my meetings are on certain days of the week, clustered in what I like to do is the morning. But talk to your team, because this means different things in different size companies, different places, if you're working across time zones. But cluster your meetings in a certain time of the day so that your devs aren't having to jump into a meeting and then try to jump into code and then jump back into a meeting and context switch all day. My other things here is to funnel communications. I started this in my first PO role because I saw my devs were just getting pinged on Slack every hour, every half hour, all the time with random questions, which they were very great to answer and were very kind. That then led to a, how you doing? How's your cat? How's your dog? How's your kid? How's life? And then 30 minutes go by and you're saying, okay, well, I just lost a lot of my time. Good communication, but lost a lot of my time. So I like to encourage funneling communications, not to make it a silo, but just to protect that time and say, okay, this is a great question. Let me set up 15 minutes with you in my designated time that I talk to engineers. I'm going to pull you in to stand up at the end when we're having side convos, and we're going to talk about this. Or you can ask them at this other designated time, or I'll ask them and bring you back the question. So these, I think, are truly some of my core tenets that I think are so, so important. My, oops, wrong one. Last one here is reward outcomes, not output. And I think this is a huge one because I've heard it repeated in a few ways. Jared yesterday in his Humanity in the Loop conversation said, more paint on the canvas doesn't make it a better painting. No one says, oh, wow, they used a whole gallon of paint. That's great. Good job. More code does not make us more productive. The generation of all of this AI of like, oh, who can use the most, who can do the best, that should not be what we're rewarding from a software perspective. We need to be thinking about, did I solve the problem? Is the user happy? Did we accomplish our goal? Did we save the dollars that we were supposed to save? So that is such a key part of this context shift that we're having to change today. So I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions and for conversations. For final takeaways, empathy is equally important shared across all teams. So it's not just from user, product to stakeholder. We have to learn how as product people to give that empathy to our engineers because context scales better than requirements. When you have the full picture, when you have the full story, you're going to be able to do your job better. You're going to be happier doing it because you know what you're solving. You know what problem or what dollar you're saving. It's going to be better for everyone. And when product and engineering clicks, you get faster delivery, you get better solutions, and you get a stronger culture. And as I've mentioned today, culture is something that is really, really big to me. I think engineers are amazing. I've stayed in product because I love working with engineers and because I know how brilliant they are. And it's so fun to be in a room of y'all today. So I challenge you with this. Take just one thing that I have mentioned today and take it back to your product owner, product manager, tech leader, and say, hey, let's try this. It never hurts to try anything once. That's what we're all about in Agile. It's iterations. It's let's try it. Let's say, oh, that didn't work that way. Let's iterate on it and build something different, try something different. But try to build a ladder, build a step towards that empathy so you can bring product and engineering closer together. All right, what questions do y'all have for me? And if you don't want to ask questions, you can always send me a LinkedIn.
She'll tap dance instead. Questions?
Tap dance.
When you engage with the engineers and you're wanting them to ask questions, how do you foster that to get them?
My good joke is that back when we were in the office, I would bake, and so if you asked a question, you'd get a cookie. But in the world of AI, that's been a lot different. So, or in the world of not AI, in the world of being in a virtual environment, that's a lot different. So I try to spend a lot of time with my developers. As I said, engineers are some of my favorite people. So I try to spend a lot of time with them. I try to cultivate that relationship and know that they're safe. We know we can fail fast. We know no questions are stupid. So trying to really make sure they feel comfortable with me because, like we said, product is not always angry. There's not always this divide between product and engineering. As long as you're cultivating that culture, I think people will start asking questions and it makes it better. Yes.
So this is politically incorrect.
I love it.
I don't
I love it.
30% of my engineers either have some form of ADHD or on the autism spectrum. We have
Yes.
programs at Univel that deal with them. We do things like consumers improv to help them with their social skills.
Yes.
Do you encounter this problem? And do you have any solutions to help address it?
I do, and that is a real thing. So I think the comfort level of the team and making sure that they feel like there's no stupid questions. And I really make sure when I'm bringing my engineers into a room, so when I take them along the process with me, I will have conversations with that group before I bring the engineer into the room and say, this is this person, this is this engineer, this is how they work, this is how they function. If they do have some sort of quirk, then I say, this is just them. And so I try to make sure everyone in the room makes them feel comfortable because that's my job, because I have empathy for my engineer and I want them there because I think they're smart and I know that they have things to say. So that's what I have done. And I also just really try to spend one-on-one time and talk to them, make them try to make them more comfortable. we have dev demos. So I try to make them like do demos for our devs. And so get feedback that way, and then get them in front of stakeholders and start doing demos, doing things and that they're comfortable talking about. So it's the feature that they've just spent a month building, so they now feel comfortable talking about it. So that's been a great way to break in and say, hey, show off this thing. You did it so great. We're going to demo it for dev first, and you're going to practice, and then you can do it to me for as many times as you want. And then we're going to go show all your stakeholders your great work. So those were probably my two favorite things that I've learned. Yeah. So Scrum Masters are great. I unfortunately haven't had a ton of Scrum Masters in my world, but they would be the same as product. So I would task them with implementing everything that we talked about. And if you are lucky enough to have a Scrum Master, absolutely, I think they are the person that can be helping coach, helping teach, can be bringing that empathy gap together across the entire organization, because they should be standing for all of those things that are binding us together from a software org perspective. Great question.
Hey, so I lead a team of developers as well.
Oh, your team was great yesterday.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have a question around, you're talking about bridging the empathy gap. How do you manage with both your engineers and with the people expecting an outcome, the so what factor? Because why are we doing what we're doing, so what?
Well, I think so what is the most powerful question, and you just continue asking it until you get the answer. But bridging that, so are you saying bridging that to engineers? So it's just showing them. So in any way, whether it is the user session, whether it is the piece of user feedback, taking that and making sure they can understand it, putting it in a real context so they're not having to guess, they're not having to say, oh, I don't know, really making it real. Like I said, putting the picture on the chair, like doing something that might seem silly or might seem stupid, but they're going to remember it and they're going to call back to that from a so what perspective. And on the flip side, from a product perspective, going to stakeholders, the so what for engineers is, no, it's not just going to take 10 minutes. No, it's not just that easy. I know you built that in Claude in 30 minutes, but it's not that simple once you get it. So flipping the so what back to the stakeholders is also very important, and understanding the time and the things that you need from a software perspective to build it and build it right is so important. Thank you. Butch.
Hello.
I also loved y'all's Q&A this
Thank
morning.
you. Question. Have you ever dealt with a developer that added a lot of complexity by bringing them into a user conversation, and how did you handle that?
I'm gonna just exit stage left. No, absolutely, absolutely. I have dealt with both sides of it, because I feel like sometimes they add too much complexity, and sometimes they say, oh, it's too hard, end sentence. That's what I deal with more often, is they just say, oh, it's too hard, and then walk away. But yes, there are absolutely the moments in time when they do bring too much complexity, and that is a conversation. And similarly to how I mentioned, I prep my stakeholders, I prep my users, I prep whomever I'm bringing the engineer into the room with. I also really prep my engineers, and I make sure they're in a place in their career, in their comfortable journey, that they won't do that too much in a session. I'm like, and then we will also create like the code word of like, you're going too far, you're going too deep, green lily, like, no, bring it back. You're losing your audience. So we'll have those conversations. It's all about preparing them for success and making sure that they're comfortable in that environment. And so, yes, it happens. It's happened to me more times than I can count on both ways. And I would honestly rather an engineer bring more complexity than sit and not ask questions. I would rather it be more complex.
We got time for one more. Make one up.
Come on. Oh.
No.
How do you structure your team from the start? I know you talk about coming in and bridging everyone together, but how do you do it from the start to make sure from a startup perspective
Yeah.
that it already they have that communication factor?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I like to enter teams and sit quietly in the corner for a time and see how they work and see how people are interacting, see what's happening, and decide, because there are no two teams and no two startups, no two organizations that are the same. So I hate to say that it depends answer, but it really depends. I think it is absolutely critical for every team to have your set of engineers that are always going to be there. You have your technical lead, whether that be just a senior dev, someone who has been tasked with being a tech lead, or being a dev scrum master hybrid type role. I've seen that. So having that support from a leadership of engineering perspective is really important. And then having a product owner or a product manager that comes in, helps define the work, helps do all of the things that product owners should, defining the backlog, setting priorities, all of that fun stuff. So doing all of that is kind of critical at first, but it's really about, like, what are you building? What do you need? Because some places you will need a UI designer. Sometimes you can make it work and kind of figure it out. But does that answer your question? Okay.
Tom doesn't get to ask his question.
Oh, sorry, Tom.
Sorry, Tom. So sorry.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much. I really appreciated the opportunity to be with y'all here today.